The central chamber of Nexus Prime hummed with an ancient energy, its crystalline walls reflecting millennia of diplomatic history. Holographic displays flickered silently around the circumference of the massive circular platform, each one a testament to countless interstellar negotiations that had shaped galactic civilization. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stepped forward, her movements deliberate and calm. She wore a simple dark uniform that carried no ornamentation, no medals, no indicators of rank beyond a subtle insignia that most alien delegates couldn't even recognize. Behind her, a small delegation of human representatives stood in precise formation, their postures speaking of disciplined preparation. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien engineering. Designed to accommodate species from hundreds of different worlds, it featured adaptive environmental zones that could instantly recalibrate atmospheric composition, gravity, and temperature. Translator devices hummed softly, ready to bridge communication gaps between wildly different biological forms. Zarek, the primary representative of the Galactic Confederation, observed the human delegation with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed condescension. As a member of the Kuril species, a race of methane-breathing crystalline entities that had been part of the Confederation for over 3,000 standard cycles, he considered humans to be little more than a recent curiosity. Their sudden appearance on the galactic stage had been noted, but never truly taken seriously. Representatives of the Galactic Confederation, Elena began, her voice cutting through the ambient sounds of the chamber with remarkable clarity. We are here to discuss matters of significant importance. The universal translators worked seamlessly, her words rendering perfectly in the complex linguistic matrices of the assembled delegates. Yet something in her tone carried a weight that transcended mere language, a quality that made even the most seasoned diplomats lean forward slightly. Zarek's crystalline form shifted, prismatic surfaces catching and refracting the chamber's soft lighting. "We are prepared to hear the concerns of the human delegation," he responded, his voice a melodic combination of resonant tones that suggested both patience and mild amusement. Elena activated a holographic display with a subtle gesture. Intricate data streams began to weave through the air, displaying complex navigational charts, economic flow diagrams, and territorial mapping that seemed to pulse with an almost living quality. The precision of the visualization was unlike anything the Confederation delegates had seen before. For the past 2 standard decades, Elena continued, your Confederation has systematically implemented a series of diplomatic and economic restrictions targeting human colonial expansion. Her words were not accusatory, but stated as simple, verifiable fact. A ripple of uncertainty passed through the assembled delegates. The Galactic Confederation was not accustomed to such direct communication. Their diplomatic protocols typically involved layers of metaphorical language, subtle negotiations, and carefully constructed verbal dance that could span cycles of discussion. Zarek's form momentarily destabilized, a rare sign of surprise for his species. "We do not understand your implication," he responded, the translation carrying a hint of defensive uncertainty. Elena's next words would change everything. "The era of subtle manipulation has reached its conclusion," she stated, her voice carrying a tone that was neither threat nor declaration, but something far more profound. "Humanity is prepared to address the systematic challenges to our expansion, and we are prepared to do so through every available means." The chamber fell into a silence so complete that one could hear the microscopic adjustments of the environmental systems. Something fundamental had shifted in the moment those words were spoken. A threshold had been crossed that would alter the course of galactic politics forever. Zarek and the other delegates did not yet realize that this was merely the beginning of a transformation they could not yet comprehend. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez had just initiated a process that would redefine the very nature of interstellar diplomacy. The holographic display continued to pulse with an almost living intensity, transforming the sterile diplomatic chamber into a dynamic landscape of information. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez watched carefully as the alien delegates processed the data streaming before them. Each projection represented years of meticulous research, carefully collected evidence that would challenge everything the Galactic Confederation believed about human capabilities. Consul Vreen, a tentacled representative from the Hydrax system, was the first to speak after the initial shock. Her translucent tendrils trembled slightly as she examined the intricate data layers. These projections suggest a level of systematic interference that would be unprecedented in Confederation history, she said, her voice a mixture of scientific curiosity and growing unease. The holographic display began to zoom and expand, revealing complex interconnections. Star charts showed subtle disruption patterns in human colonial expansion routes. Economic flow diagrams exposed carefully disguised economic barriers. Communication network analyses unveiled a web of diplomatic manipulations, so intricate that they resembled a form of collective art more than traditional political maneuvering. Elena's presentation was calculated precision personified. She had spent months with her team preparing this moment, understanding that information was the most powerful weapon in any diplomatic arsenal. Each piece of evidence was not just accusation, but a carefully constructed narrative of calculated interference. "Let me be specific," Elena said, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface. A three-dimensional map of human colonial territories materialized, with pulsing nodes indicating points of external interference. Between stellar cycles 7212 and 7218, your Confederation implemented 317 distinct diplomatic and economic restrictions targeting human expansion. The chamber grew increasingly tense. Delegates from various species shifted uncomfortably, their body languages betraying a mixture of shock and defensive posturing. The Galactic Confederation prided itself on maintaining a carefully balanced interstellar ecosystem, and here was concrete evidence challenging that fundamental narrative. Zarek's crystalline form began to pulse with internal energy, a sign of deep cognitive processing for his species. "These are serious allegations," he responded, "allegations that would require extraordinary evidence." Elena's slight smile was almost imperceptible. "Extraordinary evidence is precisely what we have prepared." With another gesture, the holographic display transformed. Detailed communication logs appeared, showing a complex network of diplomatic communications. Each interaction was mapped with contextual annotations, subtle pressures, economic manipulations, strategic blockades that had been designed to appear as routine administrative procedures. A representative from the Quantum Cooperative leaned forward, his multiple optical sensors scanning the data with increasing intensity. "The sophistication of these interference patterns is remarkable," he murmured, more to himself than to the assembled delegates. What the aliens did not yet comprehend was the true depth of human preparation. This was not a sudden confrontation, but the result of decades of careful observation, technological development, and strategic planning. Humanity had been studying the Galactic Confederation's methods with a patience and depth that defied the Confederation's understanding. "These are not random incidents," Elena continued, her voice calm and methodical. "These are strategic interventions designed to limit human potential. Economic channels subtly redirected. Communication networks strategically disrupted. Colonial expansion routes mysteriously complicated by bureaucratic mechanisms. Each projection told a story of calculated manipulation. Resource allocation charts showed how human colonies had been systematically denied critical development opportunities. Diplomatic communication logs revealed a complex dance of subtle exclusions and strategic marginalization. The alien delegates began to realize they were not just facing an accusation, but a comprehensive deconstruction of their own political mechanisms. Humanity was revealing not just individual instances of interference, but a systematic approach to interstellar political manipulation that challenged everything the Confederation believed about power dynamics. Vreen's tendrils now moved with agitated complexity. These projections suggest a level of systematic interference that would require decades of careful investigation. She stated, her scientific objectivity wrestling with the implications of the presented evidence. Ambassador Rodriguez knew this was more than a diplomatic confrontation. This was a fundamental challenge to the existing galactic order. Each carefully prepared projection was a surgical strike against the Confederation's perceived legitimacy, dismantling their carefully constructed narrative of fair and balanced interstellar governance. The chamber remained silent, save for the subtle hum of holographic projectors and the almost imperceptible shifts of alien delegates processing an entirely new understanding of their political reality. What humanity had prepared was nothing short of a complete reimagining of interstellar diplomatic engagement. The diplomatic chamber, transformed as human representatives, began their technological demonstration. What started as a simple holographic presentation quickly evolved into something far more profound. A comprehensive reveal of humanity's technological capabilities that would fundamentally challenge everything the Galactic Confederation understood about scientific potential. Dr. Marcus Chen, the lead human technological attaché, stepped forward with a device that seemed to defy the basic laws of physics. It was no larger than a standard data tablet, yet the sensors surrounding it began to register complex quantum interactions that most alien species would consider impossible. What you are witnessing, Dr. Chen explained, his voice calm and precise, is a quantum communication network that operates beyond traditional dimensional constraints. The device began to pulse with an internal light that seemed to shift between visible and non-visible spectrums. Holographic interfaces erupted around it, displaying complex mathematical equations and data streams that moved with an almost organic fluidity. Alien scientists in the chamber found themselves involuntarily leaning forward, their scientific curiosity overwhelming their diplomatic reservations. Ambassador Rodriguez watched carefully, understanding that this demonstration was more than a display of technological prowess. It was a strategic communication, a clear message about humanity's true capabilities. The quantum communication device began to generate multiple simultaneous communication channels. What was extraordinary was not just the speed of data transmission, but the device's ability to maintain coherent information across what appeared to be impossible spatial and temporal boundaries. Delegates from species that had considered themselves technological leaders watched in growing disbelief. A representative from the Quantum Cooperative, typically the most technologically advanced delegation in the Confederation, attempted to scan the device. Their most sophisticated sensors returned incomprehensible data, creating more questions than answers. "This is impossible," muttered Zarek, his crystalline form vibrating with a combination of scientific excitement and deep uncertainty. Dr. Chen activated the next demonstration. Adaptive metamaterials began to materialize in the center of the chamber. These were not simple compounds, but dynamic structures that could instantaneously reconfigure their molecular structure in response to environmental conditions. A transparent panel transformed before the delegates' eyes, shifting from rigid structural material to a computational interface, then to an energy-absorbing protective layer, all within milliseconds. The implications were staggering. Traditional defensive technologies relied on fixed material properties. Humanity had developed materials that could dynamically respond to threats, adapting faster than any traditional computational system could predict. Our adaptive metamaterials represent a fundamental reimagining of material science, Dr. Chen explained. They are not just defensive structures, but active computational systems that can analyze and respond to environmental challenges in real time. Another human representative, Dr. Usha Okonkwo, introduced their predictive computational systems. The holographic displays began to generate complex conflict scenarios with such detailed precision that they seemed almost prophetic. Multiple potential galactic interaction models played out simultaneously, each one revealing potential diplomatic and strategic outcomes with breathtaking complexity. The alien delegates realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. These were not simple predictive models, but comprehensive systems that could analyze multi-dimensional conflict scenarios with a level of nuance that bordered on precognition. Vreen, the scientific representative, could no longer maintain her diplomatic composure. The computational complexity of these models suggests capabilities far beyond anything in our current technological understanding, she stated, her scientific objectivity struggling to process the implications. What the Galactic Confederation did not yet comprehend was the true depth of human technological preparation. Each demonstration was carefully designed, not just to show capabilities, but to communicate a fundamental truth about humanity's approach to technological development. These were not isolated technological achievements. They represented a comprehensive, holistic approach to scientific innovation that viewed technology as a dynamic, adaptive system. Humanity had been preparing, studying, and developing these technologies not as individual projects, but as part of a comprehensive strategic vision. The quantum communication device continued to pulse. The adaptive metamaterials continued to shift. The predictive computational models continued to generate increasingly complex scenarios. And in the diplomatic chamber of Nexus Prime, the assembled alien delegates began to understand that everything they thought they knew about technological potential was about to be fundamentally challenged. The transformation began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Information streams started to shift, data networks began to pulse with an unusual rhythm, and the complex computational systems of the Galactic Confederation experienced their first tremors of systemic disruption. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had prepared for this moment with the precision of a master strategist. The human approach to conflict was nothing like the traditional military engagements the Confederation understood. This was warfare conducted through algorithms, strategic insights, and a profound understanding of systemic vulnerabilities. The first signs appeared in the Confederation's economic networks. Market prediction algorithms suddenly became unreliable. Trading routes that had been stable for centuries began to show inexplicable fluctuations. Financial systems that prided themselves on absolute predictability started to generate anomalies that defied conventional understanding. Consul Vreen watched in growing unease as her primary economic monitoring systems began to display increasingly erratic patterns. Holographic displays flickered with data streams that seemed to dance and reshape themselves faster than any computational system should be capable of processing. "This is impossible," she muttered, her tentacles moving with agitated complexity. Zarek's crystalline form began to pulse with increasing intensity. The Confederation's communication networks, once considered the most secure in the known galaxy, started to show signs of subtle manipulation, not outright invasion, but something far more sophisticated: strategic redirection, information filtering, and systematic destabilization. The human strategy was elegant in its complexity. They were not attacking systems directly, but fundamentally reshaping the context in which those systems operated. Economic models began to reveal hidden vulnerabilities. Diplomatic communication channels found themselves subtly redirected, with information flows adjusted in ways that were almost imperceptible. Political alliances that had stood for centuries began to show unexpected stress points. The Confederation's internal communication networks discovered that their most secure channels were being systematically analyzed, their predictive models gradually undermined by an intelligence that seemed to anticipate every possible response. Dr. Marcus Chen, watching from the human delegation's strategic center, understood the profound nature of their approach. This was not about destruction, but about revealing systemic weaknesses. Each intervention was a carefully placed point of pressure, designed to demonstrate the fundamental fragility of the Confederation's existing structures. Communication networks began to experience microscopic delays. Predictive algorithms found their accuracy gradually diminishing. Economic models started to generate increasingly unpredictable outcomes. The Confederation's systems were not being attacked. They were being studied, understood, and gradually destabilized. The most profound aspect of the human strategy was its patience. These were not sudden, dramatic interventions, but a comprehensive, systematic approach to understanding and gradually reshaping complex systems. Each moment of interference was so subtle that it could be dismissed as an anomaly, yet collectively they were creating a fundamental transformation. Diplomatic channels found themselves experiencing unexpected complexities. Negotiation models that had been stable for centuries suddenly became significantly more unpredictable. The Confederation's most sophisticated communication systems discovered that their foundational assumptions were being gently but persistently challenged. "We are not destroying your systems," Ambassador Rodriguez had explained earlier. "We are revealing their fundamental limitations." The human delegation understood something profound about complex systems that the Confederation had forgotten. True power lies not in force, but in the ability to understand and subtly reshape contextual frameworks. Economic networks began to experience microscopic redirections. Trading algorithms found themselves generating unexpected outcomes. The Confederation's most secure communication channels discovered that their predictive models were becoming increasingly unreliable. Zarek realized with growing unease that they were experiencing something unprecedented. This was not a traditional conflict, but a comprehensive demonstration of systemic understanding that challenged everything the Confederation believed about technological and strategic interaction. The information battlefield was unlike anything in galactic history. Humanity was not seeking to conquer or destroy, but to fundamentally demonstrate the potential for a different approach to systemic interaction. And in the diplomatic chambers of Nexus Prime, the first tremors of a fundamental transformation had begun. The moment of mobilization arrived with a silence that was more devastating than any explosive sound could have been. The Galactic Confederation's legendary fleet, a symbol of interstellar might that had maintained peace for thousands of cycles, began to move, believing it would demonstrate ultimate power. Instead, they discovered a nightmare beyond comprehension. Fleet Admiral Krell of the Zorm Imperial Armada was the first to recognize something was fundamentally wrong. His primary command vessel, a massive crystalline structure that had been the pride of the Confederation's defensive capabilities, began to experience systemic failures that defied all logical explanation. Communication networks dissolved into static. Navigation systems generated impossible coordinate sets. Computational cores that had been designed with multiple redundant safeguards began to experience cascading failures that spread with viral efficiency. Status report. Krell demanded, his multiple sensory appendages moving with increasing agitation. The response was nothing short of terrifying. Each ship in the massive fleet was experiencing unique, yet interconnected system failures. It was not a traditional attack. No weapons had been fired. No direct assault had been launched. Instead, the human intervention was something far more profound. A comprehensive understanding of technological systems that allowed for their complete neutralization. Quantum entanglement communication channels, once considered the most secure method of interstellar communication, began to generate nonsensical data streams. Defensive energy shields flickered with increasing irregularity. Propulsion systems found themselves caught in cascading computational loops that rendered them virtually inoperable. Dr. Marcus Chen watched the unfolding scenario from the Human Strategic Center, his expression a mixture of scientific fascination and strategic calculation. Each system failure was not random, but a carefully orchestrated demonstration of technological superiority. The Confederation had always believed in the supremacy of its technological capabilities. They had spent millennia developing defensive systems that could withstand traditional forms of attack. What they had not anticipated was an approach that viewed technology not as a set of discrete systems, but as a complex, interconnected ecosystem that could be systematically understood and neutralized. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez understood the profound psychological impact of this moment. This was not about destroying the Confederation's fleet, but about demonstrating the fundamental limitations of their existing technological paradigms. Across hundreds of ships, computational systems began to experience increasingly complex failures. Navigation protocols generated impossible routing scenarios. Communication channels dissolved into streams of incomprehensible data. Defensive systems found themselves caught in recursive computational loops that rendered them completely ineffective. "We are not attacking your systems," a transmission from the Human Strategic Center stated. "We are revealing their fundamental vulnerabilities." Fleet Admiral Krell watched in growing horror as his supposedly invincible fleet was systematically rendered inoperable. Not through conventional weapons, not through direct assault, but through a level of technological understanding that seemed to border on the supernatural. Each ship experienced a unique failure pattern, making coordinated response impossible. Some vessels found their energy distribution systems generating impossible computational scenarios. Others discovered their navigation systems creating route calculations that defied basic spatial reasoning. Defensive shields flickered with an almost organic unpredictability. The Confederation had always prided itself on technological supremacy. They had developed computational systems that could predict complex scenarios with remarkable accuracy. What they had not anticipated was an approach that could systematically reveal and exploit the fundamental limitations of their technological paradigms. Zarek, observing from the diplomatic chambers of Nexus Prime, realized with growing unease that humanity was demonstrating something far more profound than military capability. This was a comprehensive understanding of technological systems that challenged everything the Confederation believed about scientific potential. The fleet's mobilization, what was meant to be a demonstration of power, had become a comprehensive demonstration of technological vulnerability. Each system failure was a carefully placed point of pressure, revealing the fundamental fragility of systems that had been considered unassailable. And in that moment, the Galactic Confederation understood that everything they thought they knew about technological potential was about to be fundamentally challenged. The Strategic Operations Center of the human delegation was a marvel of computational design. Holographic displays danced with intricate data streams, revealing decades of careful preparation that had led to this moment. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the center, surrounded by a team of specialists who represented the pinnacle of human strategic thinking. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo, the lead strategic analyst, began to unfold the comprehensive approach that had been years in the making. Our preparation was never about a single technological breakthrough, she explained to the observing Confederation representatives. It was about understanding the fundamental nature of complex systemic interactions. The holographic displays began to reveal layers of strategic preparation that went far beyond traditional military or diplomatic thinking. What the Confederation was witnessing was a comprehensive approach to interstellar interaction that challenged every existing paradigm of conflict and cooperation. Decades of careful study had gone into understanding the Galactic Confederation's intricate political, economic, and technological systems. Each diplomatic restriction, each economic barrier, each technological limitation had been meticulously documented, analyzed, and integrated into a comprehensive strategic framework. The human approach was nothing like the Confederation had ever encountered. Traditional galactic powers viewed conflict as a series of discrete interactions, military engagements, diplomatic negotiations, economic competitions. Humanity had developed a holistic approach that viewed these interactions as interconnected systems that could be understood, predicted, and subtly manipulated. Dr. Marcus Chen activated a series of holographic projections that showed the depth of human preparation. Economic models that had been developed over decades demonstrated an understanding of Confederation economic systems that went beyond traditional analysis. These were not simple predictive models, but comprehensive frameworks that could anticipate systemic responses with remarkable accuracy. "We have been studying your systems for generations," Elena explained, her voice calm and precise. "Not to conquer, but to understand. Not to destroy, but to demonstrate the potential for a fundamentally different approach to interstellar interaction." The strategic preparations revealed something profound about humanity's approach. They had not been preparing for traditional conflict, but for a comprehensive demonstration of systemic understanding. Each technological development, each diplomatic strategy, each economic model was part of a larger, interconnected approach. Diplomatic communication logs showed years of careful observation. Technological development files revealed research approaches that went far beyond conventional scientific methodologies. Economic analyses demonstrated an understanding of complex systemic interactions that seemed almost prescient. Zarek and the other Confederation representatives watched in growing disbelief. The human delegation was not just presenting a strategy. They were revealing an entirely new approach to understanding complex systemic interactions. Dr. Okonkwo continued her presentation, revealing layers of strategic preparation that defied conventional understanding. Predictive models showed not just potential conflict scenarios, but comprehensive frameworks for systemic transformation. These were not simple war game simulations, but complex analyses of how entire civilizational systems could be understood and subtly reshaped. "Our goal was never conquest," Elena stated clearly. "Our goal was to demonstrate the potential for a fundamentally different approach to interstellar cooperation." The holographic displays continued to pulse with an almost living intensity. Each projection revealed another layer of the comprehensive human strategy, an approach that viewed conflict not as a destructive interaction, but as an opportunity for systemic understanding and transformation. technological development files showed research approaches that integrated multiple disciplines in ways the Confederation had never considered. Psychological analysis models demonstrated an understanding of complex decision-making processes that went far beyond traditional diplomatic thinking. The Confederation representatives began to realize that what they were witnessing was more than a strategic presentation. This was a fundamental challenge to their entire understanding of interstellar interaction, technological development, and systemic cooperation. Dr. Chen activated the final set of projections. These revealed the true depth of human preparation, not just technological or strategic capabilities, but a comprehensive approach to understanding complex systemic interactions that challenged everything the Confederation believed about scientific and diplomatic potential. Ambassador Rodriguez stood at the center of this complex display, a living embodiment of a strategy that went far beyond traditional concepts of conflict and cooperation. What the Galactic Confederation was witnessing was nothing less than a comprehensive reimagining of interstellar interaction. And in that moment, everything they thought they knew about technological, diplomatic, and strategic potential was about to be fundamentally transformed. The diplomatic chamber of Nexus Prime transformed into something beyond a traditional negotiation space. Light refracted through crystalline walls, creating an almost ethereal environment that reflected the profound moment unfolding within. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the center, a calm presence that carried the weight of an entire civilization's strategic vision. Representatives of the Galactic Confederation, she began, her voice carrying a clarity that seemed to cut through the complex atmospheric filters of the chamber. We are here to propose a fundamental restructuring of our interstellar relationship. The assembled delegates from hundreds of worlds found themselves caught in a moment of collective uncertainty. What had begun as a potential conflict had evolved into something far more complex. A comprehensive challenge to the existing galactic political framework. Zorek's crystalline form pulsed with an internal energy that betrayed deep cognitive processing. The Confederation's diplomatic protocols, refined over thousands of cycles, suddenly seemed inadequate in the face of humanity's comprehensive approach. Elena activated a holographic display that began to deconstruct the existing Confederation structure with surgical precision. Economic networks, diplomatic channels, technological exchange protocols. Each system was carefully analyzed, its fundamental limitations exposed not as attacks, but as opportunities for transformation. "We do not seek to destroy your systems," she explained. "We seek to demonstrate a more adaptive approach to interstellar cooperation." The presentation was nothing short of revolutionary. Humanity was not proposing a new political structure, but revealing the inherent limitations of the existing Confederation framework. Each projection showed not just problems, but comprehensive pathways for systemic evolution. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo stepped forward, her data projections revealing complex models of potential interstellar cooperation. These were not simple diplomatic proposals, but comprehensive frameworks that integrated technological, economic, and cultural exchange in ways the Confederation had never conceived. The most profound aspect of the human approach was its fundamental lack of traditional competitive mindset. Where previous galactic interactions had been defined by resource competition and territorial expansion, humanity presented a model of cooperative potential that seemed almost revolutionary. Consul Vreen, her tentacular form moving with increasing agitation, found herself confronting a diplomatic approach that defied all existing understanding. The human delegation was not presenting a negotiation, but a comprehensive reimagining of interstellar interaction. "Your current systems," Elena continued, "are designed around assumptions of limited resources, territorial competition, and technological scarcity. We are proposing a framework that views these challenges as opportunities for collective advancement. The holographic displays began to show potential collaborative models that went beyond traditional diplomatic thinking. Technological exchange protocols that could accelerate scientific development across multiple civilizations. Economic frameworks that viewed resource allocation as a collaborative rather than competitive process. Each projection revealed layers of strategic thinking that challenged the Confederation's fundamental understanding of interstellar relations. These were not theoretical models, but comprehensive frameworks backed by decades of careful preparation and systemic analysis. Dr. Marcus Chen introduced technological exchange proposals that demonstrated humanity's true strategic brilliance. The proposals were not about technological superiority, but about creating collaborative frameworks that could accelerate scientific development across multiple civilizations. The Confederation representatives began to realize that what they were witnessing was more than a diplomatic presentation. This was a fundamental challenge to their entire understanding of interstellar interaction, technological development, and systemic cooperation. "We are not asking for your submission," Elena stated clearly. "We are offering a partnership that fundamentally reimagines our collective potential." The diplomatic chamber grew increasingly charged with a sense of profound possibility. What had begun as a potential conflict was transforming into an opportunity for comprehensive systemic evolution. Zarek's crystalline form began to pulse with an energy that suggested deep cognitive recalibration. The human delegation was not presenting a traditional diplomatic proposal, but a comprehensive framework for reimagining interstellar cooperation. Ambassador Rodriguez stood as a living embodiment of a strategy that went far beyond traditional concepts of diplomatic interaction. The Galactic Confederation was witnessing nothing less than a comprehensive reimagining of their understanding of collective potential. And in that moment, everything they thought they knew about diplomatic, technological, and cooperative possibilities was about to be fundamentally transformed. The transformation began subtly, then accelerated with breathtaking momentum. What had started as a diplomatic confrontation in the chambers of Nexus Prime evolved into a comprehensive reimagining of interstellar civilization. The Galactic Confederation found itself not conquered, but fundamentally changed. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood as a witness to this profound moment of transition. Her team of strategists, scientists, and diplomats had prepared for this scenario across generations, understanding that true transformation came not from conflict, but from a comprehensive vision of collaborative potential. The first changes manifested in technological exchange protocols. Research centers across Confederation worlds began to experience unprecedented collaborative opportunities. Scientific teams that had been isolated by centuries of competitive paradigms now found themselves working on complex problems with a level of integration never before imagined. Dr. Marcus Chen oversaw the initial stages of technological integration. Quantum communication networks that had been developed by humanity became open-source platforms for collective scientific advancement. Adaptive metamaterial research accelerated across multiple civilizations, breaking down barriers that had existed for millennia. Zarek, once a skeptical Confederation representative, now found himself leading a comprehensive review of existing interstellar governance models. The human approach had revealed fundamental limitations in how galactic civilizations had previously understood cooperation, resource allocation, and technological development. Economic systems began to transform. Traditional resource competition gave way to collaborative development models. Planetary economies that had been isolated found themselves part of a more dynamic, interconnected framework. The concept of territorial expansion was reimagined as a collaborative opportunity rather than a competitive challenge. Consul Vreen led a comprehensive analysis of the new interstellar framework. What emerged was not a human-dominated system, but a truly collaborative approach that recognized the unique potential of each participating civilization. Scientific breakthroughs began to accelerate at a pace that defied previous understanding. The transformation was not without challenges. Centuries of established diplomatic protocols had to be carefully dismantled and reconstructed. Some Confederation members initially resisted the new approach, their entire understanding of interstellar interaction challenged by humanity's comprehensive vision. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo worked tirelessly to develop adaptive governance models that could support this new framework of interstellar cooperation. These were not simple political structures, but dynamic systems that could evolve and adapt to the changing needs of multiple civilizations. Technological development centers began to emerge on multiple worlds. These were not isolated research facilities, but interconnected networks that allowed for unprecedented levels of collaborative innovation. Scientific breakthroughs that would have taken centuries now emerged in decades. The human approach revealed a profound understanding of complex systemic interactions. Where previous galactic civilizations had viewed technological and cultural exchange as a zero-sum game, humanity demonstrated a model of collaborative potential that seemed almost revolutionary. Diplomatic channels that had once been rigid and competitive now became dynamic platforms for collective problem-solving. Challenges that had seemed insurmountable, resource allocation, technological development, cultural integration, were now viewed as opportunities for collective advancement. The most profound transformation was psychological. Civilizations that had existed in a state of subtle competition for millennia began to see themselves as part of a larger interconnected system of potential. The very concept of interstellar interaction was fundamentally reimagined. Ambassador Rodriguez understood that this was more than a diplomatic achievement. This was a comprehensive demonstration of a new approach to collective potential. Humanity had not conquered the Galactic Confederation. They had offered a vision of collaborative possibility that transcended existing understanding. Technological exchange platforms became the new centers of interstellar interaction. Research centers that had been isolated found themselves part of a dynamic, interconnected network of innovation. Scientific potential that had been constrained by competitive paradigms now found itself unleashed. The final session at Nexus Prime marked more than a diplomatic resolution. It represented a fundamental shift in how civilizations could interact. The Galactic Confederation, once believing themselves the masters of interstellar governance, now recognized humanity as a critical catalyst for evolutionary potential. As the diplomatic sessions concluded, a new understanding emerged. This was not a moment of human victory, but a comprehensive demonstration of collective potential. Humanity had not sought to dominate, but to reveal a fundamentally different approach to interstellar cooperation. Ambassador Rodriguez stood as a living embodiment of this transformative vision. The moment captured the essence of a profound truth, that true potential emerges not from competition, but from a comprehensive understanding of collaborative possibility. And in that moment, the galaxy itself seemed to pause, recognizing that everything was about to change.